To the story leading our bulletin now, the Auditor-General's report on the financial performance of national and provincial departments has been released. Things are not looking good for South Africa. Now, according to the report, irregular spending for 2020 to 2021 financial year currently stands at just 166 billion rand. That's up from 109 billion in 2019 to 2020 financial year. Let's get some reaction now. I'm joined by political economist Mandla Lionel Isaacs. Mandla, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Somewhat of an improvement in clean audits for this cycle, but slow progress, particularly when we look at SOEs and those service delivery departments. Are you in the least bit surprised, though, that the likes of Denel and SAA are among those auditees that didn't submit financial statements?
Good afternoon, Mfundo. Unfortunately, I'm not at all surprised about particularly SAA and Denel. We know that those have been among the SOEs which have been having financial difficulties for several years now. The SAA has frankly made a habit of not submitting, annual reports for years. We only really know what's going on because of the business rescue process that they've had. But essentially, for several years now, they've been unable to submit financial reports, and largely because they have not, frankly, been a going concern. So it's been difficult to get auditors to sign off on their finances when essentially they have been insolvent.
And then, according to the AG, the 13 entities that received disclaimers, those are NEXA, Palchem, and several TVET colleges. Mind you, we realize that these are repeat disclaimers. Does it not speak perhaps of a need for consequences, for accountability failures here? Because if they are repeat disclaimers, we can't just continue in this fashion.
Well, absolutely. All of the public entities have accounting officers. For national departments, it's the directors general. And these accounting officers are responsible for the finances of those entities according to the Public Finance Management Act, and frankly are supposed to be held accountable either legally or certainly politically. You would think that these accounting officers would be either removed if they're unable to guarantee the financial sustainability of these entities. But unfortunately, we've become sort of numb to it in our political governance space. We have the same thing every year. The Auditor-General releases these findings, and government makes noises of concern. But frankly, the problems continue, and it seems to have become an endemic part of our public governance.
But it seems the AGU is very nice about it, or euphemistic. She said perhaps this speaks of a need to hire personnel with requisite skills for ongoing compliance. I mean, really, is it an issue of there not being enough skills, or does it boil down to corruption? That it's deliberate?
Well, I think the two are intertwined and I think mutually enforcing. I think there's clearly been a lack of skills. I think particularly more so when you look at local government and some of the entities which tend to be a little bit farther from public view. I think national government departments tend to have skilled financial managers. But certainly when you look at local government, particularly some of the municipalities away from the big metros, you start to see some significant skills gaps, which obviously creates room for corruption. I think it's important to note, though, the difference between, effective public governance and mere compliance, right? So I think to the extent that if the bar is compliance, I mean, it's very easy for, frankly, people within the system who know the system to, try to meet the letter of the law or even hide behind things like irregular expenditure and waste public resources. I think what we really need is, public managers who really embrace the ethos of effective public governance, value for money, and true delivery of public goods that really enhances people's lives. Because if you do that, if you really embrace that ethos, you won't have a problem, with mere compliance. I think that is the distinction we really need need to draw.
And she stressed that point, honestly, when she went on to say that clean audits themselves don't equate to effective service delivery. I really got that. That you can, if you're very familiar with the system, actually work around it, but are the ordinary citizens getting services? And then to the non-compliance issue. It's improving. It's at 31% from 29%, but it seems the most common areas are those around procurement and contract management, and then also the quality of financial statements. Just talk to me about these common areas of non-compliance.
Well, procurement is obviously, one of the central areas of concern. That's, when government is obviously a huge procurer of goods and services. Tenders, of course, the infamous, tender question, which we constantly come back to. And so you have these huge supply chain management departments that deal with questions around when government needs to buy something, how does it go around doing it within the rules in terms of bringing in, requesting proposals from multiple vendors in a transparent way, evaluating different proposals for their technical quality as well as, cost and value for money within highly prescribed rules. But unfortunately, as we say, people know the system and they know how to kind of get around the rules. Then, of course, there's contract management, which is also very important, right? Because it's one thing to, to give a tender to a party, and we hope you've given it to the right service provider. But it's another thing to then manage that service provider such that you actually get value for money in terms of how they deliver, but also that those contracts don't then become kind of Trojan horses for malfeasance. So one of the things that people have figured out is, well, if you have to give the tender to the person that brings in the lowest price, well, give it someone some inside information on what price to quote on. And then once they get in, they can then kind of ask for extensions and deviations to change the contract over time. So all of those things need to be managed quite closely. And of course, we've seen, particularly at Eskom with Medupi and Kusile and the hundreds of billions of rands that have been spent over budget there, that ineffective contract management has been a huge culprit in that regard.
And that's how we get to an annual irregular expenditure of 166 billion. But Mandla, thank you very much for your time. That is political economist Mandla Lionel Isaacs there.